Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Word of Mouth podcast. I'm your host, Michael Horn. It is great to be with you as always. This is our 24th episode of the Word of Mouth podcast. We've officially been doing this podcast about 2 years through the generous help and service of Covenant Network Radio, WCAT Radio, and also now most recently the iHeartRadio app. So just want to remind all of our listeners that we're very grateful for you listening to us as we just share local stories throughout the St. Louis area of young Catholics and old Catholics who just have a witness and a great message to share with you all as we seek to evangelize, to bring the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ to all the people in the local church and in the wider world as well. And just want to remind you that we are available through many outlets. We have our WCATradio.net that is open to all the episodes, so you can access all the episodes on WCAT Radio. You can also access us on the iHeartRadio app, and then we also air on Covenant Network twice a month, 1460 a.m. here in St. Louis. It might be a different number for you depending on where you are, but 1460 a.m. here in St. Louis. And today I have the great pleasure and honor of being with Phill Kosta. Phill, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here. This is awesome. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Phill is the second member of the Kosta family who has served as a guest on the podcast. Right. So we had Phil's younger brother, Matt, earlier, back several episodes ago, but we are very grateful to hear Phil's story today. And so, Phill, as we just dive in today, just if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your faith journey and just kind of your early life and how you got to where you are today.
Sure thing. Well, yeah, I grew up in a Catholic family, oldest of 5 kids. And I guess, we were pretty casual Catholics, probably up until about when I was in 4th or 5th grade when my grandfather passed away. And he was just a really devout man, daily mass attendee, prayed a rosary every day, did like a daily examen, really, really faithful guy. So when he passed away, it kind of jump-started my family's faith life, and as a result, jump-started my faith life. So, I did things like I went to my 8th grade retreat, and that got me started in high school youth ministry. And I think I kind of rode the typical youth ministry kind of thing out until college, where I went to Truman State for just about a year before I decided that school wasn't for me. But when I left, I thought I'd try music ministry, just, see if doing some ministry would kind of bring my faith life to a greater level. And it wasn't until I found the program Totus Tuus from my now wife, who told me about it, that I served as a missionary with Totus Tuus in the Diocese of Charlotte. And I think that was when things really kind of changed for me. I was a pretty casual Catholic until then. And it wasn't until then, serving in that missionary kind of aspect, that, I just saw how much more intentional we all need to be and how seriously we have to take the faith. And that's when I really kind of started to see spiritual growth and just the development of a spiritual life and a commitment to a prayer life that really kind of changed the way that I viewed myself and viewed the world around me, and really kind of shaped my faith as I know it and practice it today.
Awesome. Sweet, Phill. So, Phill, I hate to ask this question. How old are you?
I will be 26 next month.
26. Okay, I had no idea that you're actually younger than me. I'm an old man.
Really?
I'm coming up on 30 here at Halloween, so it's great to be with someone younger.
Awesome.
This is great. And also, I just a question for our St. Louis listeners, because I know that they're all just really out there holding their breath and trying to figure out where you went to high school.
Okay, yeah. I went to Bishop DeBerg High School, and now actually my wife works there, so you just can't keep us away.
Right. So shout out to the Bishop DeBerg people out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just one other thing, your interest. So obviously you're a big musician, and to all our listeners out there, if you have a chance to catch Phill in any of his performances, whether it's leading worship or just a casual performance at one of the pubs out in South County, I'd certainly invite you to take advantage of those opportunities, because Phill is very talented. But besides music, what are some of your other interests that you have?
Well, thank you for the kind words, first off.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very affirming. Interest, I'm kind of a nerd, and I like to try do-it-yourself projects around the house. I got into do-it-yourself electronics for a while. It wasn't very good, but I don't know. I just like trying new things and stretching my brain and seeing how I can challenge myself. I also, besides playing music in my daily life, I'm a stay-at-home dad. So I'm just following my toddler around for the few times that we can meet with our Playdate group. There's a group of young parents at St. Gabriel's that will meet with them and their kids. So that's kind of like an interest, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
Yeah.
And your wife's name is Laura.
Yes.
And your daughter's name is?
Lucy. Yes.
Lucy.
And we're expecting our son, Tommy, in October.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
All right. So kind of as we reflect on your vocation so far and your journey, obviously you're involved with a lot of excellent things as a stay-at-home dad, music, do-it-yourself projects, all these different things. So obviously your vocation is to marriage and family life. Mm-hmm. Any other kind of sub-missions or vocations that you would say that you've had in your life? Anything that you're really striving to accomplish, to achieve as you go about your day-to-day life?
Sure. Well, as a musician, I definitely strive to just do the best that I can to kind of reflect the beauty that God has given us through that art form. So whether it be, playing at a pub or substituting for someone at Mass, leading teenagers, young adults in worship, just do it the best I can. Mm-hmm. And then something I picked up on Totus Tuus was the Latin phrase lex orandi, lex credendi, which basically translates to how it is that we pray reflects what it is that we believe. So I kind of try to have that just as a motto in my everyday life, having this idea that the way I behave, the way I carry myself should reflect what it is that I believe and, what convicts me. So, yeah, I guess that's like my biggest mission outside of, being a husband and father. Mm-hmm. And, of course, playing music. I do like to do ministry events. Mm-hmm. They're probably the most fun thing that I get to do. There's nothing like, sure, if you play at a bar, you play to a couple of people that are like barely listening to you. but when you play for like high school retreats, there's nothing more exciting than like singing some cheesy song and like all these kids being like, oh yeah, like right back at you. That's so much fun. So yeah, that's kind of my vocation in life and I'm here for it. I'm loving it.
Awesome. And another thing that I think we talked about when we were together earlier in the week about just this other kind of goal, or I don't know what you would say, maybe a bucket list item or hope or wish or dream that you would like to have a family band, right?
Absolutely. I'm already convinced my daughter's going to be a drummer. So, if it can be like a little, what's it? It's not Brady Bunch. There's some TV show out there. Some little family band kind of thing. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Amazing. Sweet. Okay, so that's mission and vocation. As we've heard more about your story as a musician, as a husband, as a father, just kind of leading people into worship, leading people to encounter the Lord, all good things. Just as we reflect back now, some blessings and challenges that you've experienced thus far in your young 26 years of life. I cannot believe I'm going to be 30. So anyway, but blessings and challenges just that you've experienced so far in your life, things that you want to give thanks for and things that maybe were very difficult, but that also looking back you might want to give thanks for as well.
I think the most succinct thing I could say on what is both a blessing and a challenge is just my role as a father, because kids are so great and yeah, they're so great, but they're also so challenging. I remember when I was still working in ministry at the time for a parish in Columbia, Missouri, when my wife and I were expecting Lucy. And I remember people saying things like, oh, baby on the way, you're never going to sleep. And I thought they were exaggerating. I didn't realize how true that was. And, while there was the great blessing of holding this beautiful child and just seeing God reflected, the Trinitarian mystery reflected in our family, that was so cool. But also, it's just so hard to go off of a few hours of sleep, especially when those hours of sleep are on a nursery floor,
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a real challenge, and a real blessing, being a father, because it draws things out of you that both good and bad that you just didn't know were in you. To quote my dad, he said, kids are great at making you realize what an awful person you are and helping you to strive to be better.
Yeah, I love that quote. It's so powerful and humbling. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that about, blessings and challenges. Like you said, they're the same thing almost in this case. Yeah, just being a husband, the opportunities to grow spiritually, just
absolutely
loving, all these things. Yeah, excellent. And as we kind of transition now to kind of the intentional evangelical component, so obviously we've heard about your story and what you view as your mission and things you've encountered in your life so far. What is evangelization? What does that word mean to you?
To me, what evangelization really means is just having the bravery to live your everyday life in a way that reflects the truth and love that God has for us and has put within us, and just being willing to share the faith with just about anyone. I told you earlier in the week that when I worked as a youth minister, I used to sometimes think, it's really easy for me when I'm up in front of a group of 7th or 8th graders, or whenever I would play for conferences. It's kind of easy to evangelize in those situations. I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing, but it's pretty easy. It's a lot harder to do something like, I don't know, wear a youth ministry shirt while you're walking out in public and have someone ask you, what's that about? And have the grace and wisdom and also the courage to explain what it is that you're wearing and how you're in that moment called to represent the church.
Sure.
So that's what evangelization is to me. It's just being brave, being bold, being willing to share the gospel with anybody, whether it be a high school youth group kid or a stranger that might be an atheist on the street.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, we encounter all types of people, fallen away Catholics, devout Catholics, people that are of no faith whatsoever. Yeah, just a lot of opportunities, like you said, every day to just encounter someone where they are and just to share the gospel with them, to share love and truth with them in those circumstances. So thank you for that, Phill. I just wanted to transition to our catechetical segment today based on marriage and family. And so I found 12 passages from the Catechism of the Catholic Church for our reflection today in light of Phil's faith journey and his story as a husband and father, just the great witness that he provides for us. So reflecting on family life and parenthood, we have a couple excellent quotes here from the Catechism. So the first one that we have is from paragraph 564 from the Catechism. And it just reads, "By his obedience to Mary and Joseph, as well as by his humble work during the long years in Nazareth, Jesus gives us the example of holiness in the daily life of family and work." And so as we look at that from the child perspective, and so as we are all adopted sons and daughters of God, we look at Jesus' example of holiness in the daily life of family and work. And so we reflect on the wonderful example of the Holy Family, of Mary, the Immaculate Virgin, and Joseph, her most chaste spouse, as we give him that title in the divine praises. The humble work that was taken on by Joseph, Mary, and Jesus in their family life is just a wonderful model for us. And again, that's from 564 in the Catechism. Our second quote from paragraph 1655 in the Catechism: "Christ chose to be born and grew up in the bosom of the Holy Family of Joseph and Mary. The Church is nothing other than the family of God. From the beginning, the core of the Church was often constituted by those who had become believers together with all their household." And that's from Acts 18:8. And so this reminds us in the early Church that the Church grew by basically families. And so the whole household was baptized and came to Christ in this witness. And so we talk about today a lot of the controversy over infant baptism and such, but we hear that these households were baptized in their entirety. And Curtis Martin, the great founder of Focus, has this great evangelization quote, and he talks about how we evangelize through our words and actions, and we go out and reach the masses through that evangelization form as well, but we also evangelize just by creating Catholic families, by raising Catholic families, and just the witness of the husband and father, and obviously the woman and mother, raising a family, many children perhaps, maybe a few children, whatever, just to raise up saints, to raise up witnesses and disciples for the faith. Our third quote from the Catechism, 1653, just a couple paragraphs before: "Parents are the principal and first educators of their children. In this sense, the fundamental task of marriage and family is to be at the service of life." And so Phill certainly knows a lot about being the educator of his children. So his daughter Lucy, he gets to spend a lot of time with Lucy to educate her and to raise her in the faith and to teach her the truth and to provide a good witness for her. Fourth, we have from paragraph 1657, "The home is the first school of Christian life and a school for human enrichment. Here one learns endurance and the joy of work, fraternal love, generous, even repeated forgiveness, and above all, divine worship and prayer and the offering of one's life." Fifth, the Christian home is the place where children receive the first proclamation of the faith. For this reason, the family home is rightly called the domestic church. So we hear that term a lot, the domestic church. It's a community of grace and prayer, a school of human virtues and of Christian charity, from paragraph 1666. Sixth, the Christian family constitutes a specific revelation and realization of ecclesial communion. It can and should be called the domestic church. It's a community of faith, hope, and charity, from 2204. Number 7, the Christian family is a communion of persons. So Phill mentioned earlier how the family is a sign and image of the communion of the Father and the Son and in the Holy Spirit. In the procreation and education of children, the family reflects the Father's work of creation, and it is called to partake of the prayer and sacrifice of Jesus Christ, and then daily prayer and the reading of the Word of God strengthen the family in charity, from paragraph 2205. Number 8, the family is the original cell of social life. It's a natural society in which a husband and wife are called to give themselves in love and in the gift of life. Authority, stability, and a life of relationships within the family constitute the foundations for freedom, security, and fraternity within society. And so it's in the family that we learn moral values, begin to honor God, and make good use of our freedom. And it's an initiation into the life of society. So that's from paragraph 2207. Number 9 from the following paragraph. The family should live in such a way that its members learn to care and take responsibility for the young, the old, the sick, the handicapped, and the poor. There are many families who are at times incapable of, so it devolves then on other persons, other families, and in a subsidiary way, society to provide for their needs. And so we all know in our own families that we have people that are suffering in various ways, or they're handicapped mentally, physically, whatever, emotionally, psychologically. There's a lot of things that go on in our families that create conflict, and so it's very difficult sometimes to work together, but that's our call, to work together, that we can take responsibility for each other, whether young or old, sick, healthy, handicapped, in good health, whatever it might be. 10th, Sunday, the Lord's Day, is the principal day for the celebration of the Eucharist, as we know. It is the preeminent day of the liturgical assembly, the day of the Christian family, and the day of joy and rest from work. So that's one of the things I think is most challenging in our society today, is recover the Sabbath, to recover the Sunday day of rest for family, for time of worship with God, for time to be just at peace, to rest and to recover and to spend that quality time with God and our family. Number 11, the family must be helped and defended by appropriate social measures. So where families cannot fulfill their responsibilities, other social bodies, especially the government, have the duty of helping them and of supporting the institution of the family. That's from 2209. And then finally, this quote is from the following paragraph, 2210. The importance of the family for the life and well-being of society entails a particular responsibility for society to support and strengthen marriage and the family. Civil authorities should consider it a grave duty to acknowledge the true nature of marriage and the family, to protect and foster them, to safeguard public morality, and promote domestic prosperity. That's a lot of quotes there. There's 12 quotes on the family. Hopefully one of them has appealed to you in some way, just to think about your own life and the blessing of our own families and the blessing of the families that we perhaps will start soon or in the midst of forming. There's a lot of good quotes from the Catechism to remind us of the value and the significance of family. So we all come from a family. We're all born into a family. And like Phil mentioned, just that mirror image of the father and the mother and children just coming together and mirroring in an analogous way the nature of the Trinity, of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so the Christian home, the Christian family must be a place of safety, of security, of evangelization, of the proclamation of the faith. It's a school for our enrichment. It's the domestic church, as we hear constantly. It's a cell of social life. It helps form us into people that are protected, that are defended, that have our needs met so that we can go out and change the world in many ways. And so hopefully, like I said, one of those passages will appeal to you as you reflect on the beauty of the family and your own call as a husband and father or as a wife and mother, just to be an evangelical witness to your children and to the wider world and your work and whatever you do. And so as we just reflect again on marriage and family life and Phil's witness, we just have a couple tips that he's going to give us on evangelization that he's learned in his own life. So some things that he's learned from his own experience of evangelization, whether it's through Totus Tuus for youth ministry, through music. Just a couple tips, Phil, that you could leave us with if we want to kind of improve our evangelization efforts.
Sure. Well, the first thing, obviously, is pray. Just absolutely pray and be faithful to a prayer life. It doesn't matter if, maybe you're a father, mother, or you're a parent, like myself. Finding time to pray can be kind of hard, or at least we can make it out to be really hard. So if it's just something as simple as pray when you wake up, pray before you go to bed, pray before meals, do that. If you are, still able to commit to like a real rigid missionary style prayer regimen of like daily rosary, holy hour, going to daily mass, praying, 3 hours out of the liturgy of the hours, all that stuff. Like I know I used to have the time to do, then do that. But just whatever it is, commit to praying is the first and most important thing. The second thing that I've kind of realized working in ministry, especially as a musician, and I think I see this a lot, and actually I was talking about this with my friend Tim Lucchese. I was with him earlier today from Chase Love Ministries, and we were talking about how you don't have to be Catholic famous. I think in this social media age, it's really easy for us to want to have, that Catholic blog or that Instagram profile that everyone follows and gains inspiration from. We don't need to be famous. We just need to say yes when we can, and commit to spreading the gospel when we can, and if you ever feel tempted, like you have to be Catholic famous, the thing that I do when I find myself falling into this thinking, because I do it myself, absolutely. But what I usually do is I pray the litany of humility. It'll immediately take you down like 1,000 pegs. Absolutely. It'll make you feel so small, which is so important. And then the last thing is look to the lives of the saints for guidance. Whether you be a single person, whether you're religious, whether you're a family, a part of a family. There are now a couple of saints out there that are canonized together. Like St. Teresa's parents. My wife is going to kill me for not remembering their names. It's like Zaley and Lewis, I think. Yeah. Whew, thank goodness I remembered that. That's like two of her favorite saints. Yeah, look at the lives of the saints for inspiration. I know I personally find the martyrs to be a great source of inspiration, to just have that kind of conviction, even to death. That's just, that's so powerful and so important. So yeah, pray. You don't need to be famous. Pray the litany of humility and look to the lives of the saints. That's all I can offer.
Amen. No, thank you so much, Phill. Yeah, so Phill just reminds us of the importance again of kind of what do we need to do before we can provide an effective witness. So sometimes we have guests that will talk about kind of like practical in conversation evangelization tips. But Phill reminds us that if we don't have a solid prayer life, if we don't have an interior life, if we don't spend that time just asking for guidance from the Lord, asking for wisdom, if we don't pray the litany of humility, if we don't pray these prayers and just take time to look at the lives of the saints to receive that inspiration, then we won't be effective witnesses. And we just learn about that from the Soul of the Apostolate, a classic Catholic work that reminds us just that everything that we do is meaningless if it's not supported by a sound interior life. Mm-hmm. So we have to take that time for silence, for prayer, for reflection, for communion with the Lord, to be faithful to the sacraments, to be people who are sitting around in silence every now and again and just kind of tuning out and just hearing the voice of the Lord and not the voice of the world, because the voice of the world is very loud right now. And so just Phil's great reminder for us to just be people of an interior life and to look at the witnesses, look at our favorite saints, to pray to our patron saints for guidance, for help in these situations. And so today we're actually recording on the feast of St. James, the Greater, who is a wonderful martyr, as Phill mentioned the martyrs. And so we ran a catechesis on the martyrs last month because June features a lot of martyrs in the church. And so we have so many wonderful saints, witnesses, martyrs who have gone before us in our faith to really guide us to who we are challenged to be as Christians in the world today. So I just want to thank you, Phill, again, for your witness and sharing your journey with us today and all of your insights. So thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks. It was a treat to be here. It was
Appreciate
awesome.
it. Appreciate it. And just want to remind our listeners before we sign off today, so this is our 24th episode. So praise be Jesus Christ for 2 full years now of the Word of Mouth podcast. And thank you so much for continuing to tune in to us. Just want to remind you that we are available on the iHeartRadio app, WCAT Radio, an internet radio station, and also Covenant Network. Twice a month we air these episodes. So again, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting us. And just we are here to provide the example of people who are living the gospel, who are evangelizing, and basically professions and work that are not religious, that are not explicitly connected to the Catholic Church per se. So it's people that don't work for the church. It's people that just live secular lives but evangelize in that. And so we're very grateful. And so Phill is one of the many witnesses that we've had on this show who provide a wonderful witness of being a husband and father. And I remember we've had Stan Buncher on the podcast. We've had Alan Schwarb. We've had Tim Lucchese, whom you alluded to earlier, and just some wonderful people. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting a couple of people. We've had 24 episodes, forgive me, but we've had a lot of great people who have talked about the beauty of living the Catholic faith and evangelizing as a husband and father. Jay Klein was another one I just remembered. So yeah, all these wonderful witnesses that we have from a variety of backgrounds. Thank you so much for your witness, and we're going to wrap up today. Just thank you so much for continuing to tune in to us, and we'll hopefully see you next time. We won't see you, but you'll hear us next time, I guess.
Yep.
So, Phill, any last words for our listeners? Any inspiration that you have?
No, I think I said it all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Phill, and God bless you all.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.